I'm the Senior Vice President of New Business at Universal Music Group in Santa Monica in Los Angeles. I am in charge of the gaming, immersive, and blockchain Web3 strategy for the company. And my background is, music industry and platforms. So I work for SoundCloud. I build my own, also my own music streaming service here in San Francisco called Pulse Locker. So about 10 years in music and another 15 years in platform, and now at Universal Music, where I combine pretty much everything I've learned. Yeah.
Love it. Alex, what do you think?
Alex, one of the co-founders of Styngr. We partner with the major labels to get music into video games. We have an infrastructure layer that makes it very easy to port that in. It's Web3 friendly as well as Web2 friendly. And then we have blanket licensing structure that goes across all the majors, Universal being our largest partner, on the label side, the publishing side, and at the country level on the PRO side. So everything you need to get music into games.
We're going to go deeper based on your belief and your vision around the blockchain, gaming and music verticals, but also talking about the products you have on your side. But before that, I would love to ask both these questions. How do you see the evolution of the relationship between the gaming and the music industry happening? And on my side, I had this click in my head when I see the Travis, the concert on Fortnite of Travis. It definitely triggers something on my side, saying that there are a lot of synergies between the music and the gaming industry, because it makes sense in terms of the kind of user acquisition strategy you would like to have. But with your own words and more experience that I have, why it makes sense to actually go nurture this relationship between the music and the gaming industry. So if you can start with you, Alvaro.
Me? Well, I think you're fundamentally talking about two different aspects of music and the music industry, right? The Travis Scott concert and all those activations on Fortnite that you're talking about, they are amazing, marketing and promotion vehicles for artists and for record labels, and a great way to shorten the distance in between the fan and the artist, or the artist and the fan. In terms of the business aspect of that, all that is fundamentally based on sync license. That means a pretty close collaboration in between the platform and the who owns those rights. And some of those concerts, they take sometimes up to 6 months to develop. So very white glove, very complicated activations, and they work really well for marketing purposes. And then there is the second aspect of music on these platforms. That is really about music across the entire platform, and the access that players are going to have to discover music, to listen to music, to enjoy music, to share music. So those are two different aspects, and I think that they're evolving in different ways. Right. I'm going to stop there for now. It's a pretty deep talk, but what do you think, Alex?
I think it's a good point. I mean, when you were talking about it, one of the things that came to mind is just sustainability, right? For some of these large concerts, there can be 7-figure costs for the artists. I think that particular one, the Travis Scott, was something like 9+ months of setup. And it was a phenomenal event, broke a human record. But we approach it in a more sustainable way, meaning how do you get it to be beneficial for the platform? So monetize it, attract new audience, keep new audience, and then also too, how do you make it beneficial for the artist? We send our streams over so that they're Billboard eligible. So we're working with platforms right now to say, how do we highlight artists in a way that can help them chart in the top 100? How do you get their audience to come to your platform, and likewise have your exposure to an enormous audience on the platform you have? So it can be kind of a flywheel, and that can work for artists at any level, right? These really big environments, it's probably a large artist, but smaller environments, it's probably an indie artist or an up-and-coming artist. There's opportunity for all the levels there, I think.
Do you feel like the opportunity coming from the blockchain technology per se is definitely mostly for the challenges we see in the music industry around licensing? Should we focus on that when we talk about blockchain?
What are your thoughts?
Interesting. I think when it comes to blockchain and the use of blockchain within the music, the music industry, music in general, there are probably two different cases, and it really depends on who you are. For example, if I'm an up-and-coming artist, an independent artist, that I'm interested in, for example, fractional ownership, right? Blockchain is a really, really interesting idea. In a world in which it is so difficult for independent artists to basically break through and to collect data, and to understand where the money is coming from, and all the complexities around reporting, which are huge, right? I can really understand why a technology like blockchain can be really, really valuable. In my world, which is now I come from the independent industry, but now I work for a major label. In that aspect, blockchain is not that interesting for us because we are a really well-oiled machine of, identifying artists, developing artists, launching careers and collecting money, right? So in that sense, it's not that interesting. But, what you and I discussed in the past, where I think the real potential is in this idea of sort of like lowering the barrier to entry to music licensing. Over the last 20 years since people started to license music and gaming, it has been a very complicated, very cumbersome, very scary idea to just, work with the music industry to license music. And I think, as we were discussing, for example, smart contracts, I think there is a path to, build a bit of like a plug and play solution with all rights included that can be offered as a smart contract and can be offered at scale using blockchain for transparency and access. Nobody has done it yet. Maybe we do it. We should do it. Yeah, I don't know if did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did definitely. What do you think, Alex? It's part of the value proposition. Obviously, you're not stating that specifically on Styngr, but the value proposition of what you're doing is to give more transparency and freedom to the music artists who would like to just release the music within the game and have a fair share of the revenue they should actually ask for. So,
right.
What is your ethos of Styngr using blockchain?
That's a good question. We did a lot of work on that side. We built out a pretty good amount of infrastructure to be able to be Web 3 friendly in addition to the Web 2 stuff that we have. And honestly, I think it's a little different whether it's the games angle or the artist angle. From the artist angle, I saw some really interesting experiments on the Web3 side that were more around community engagement. The Aokiverse is a good example, right? Where he built a pretty cool environment and brought some people into it, and then you had an NFT that basically gated usage of certain content in Discord channels. But the challenge was the environment was not a really fleshed out game environment. It was more of like a vertical slice. And then I was just having a conversation with somebody this morning who was managing that Discord channel. Both sides got really upset. The people who didn't have the NFTs are like, why am I gated content? Why isn't this just for everybody? And then the people who had the NFTs are like, why are these non-NFT holders in here? Why are they getting anything at all? So that backfired. that actually did poorly. But we're servicing one platform now that's a gaming platform that's Web3 based, large open world kind of shooter platform. And I think the opportunity there is their virtual currency is based on a token. We can consume that. It doesn't have to be fiat. We can take that in and then use it to pay out usage and royalty rates, so it makes it really easy to engage in. And for the artists, I think figuring out how to approach that world is challenging, but really it's just a game. It's just a really compelling game. You put good music in there and people have the ability to leverage their tokens against it to consume more of it and get worthwhile experiences. I don't know, I think it can feed both sides of the house. So we're just making it very, very simple. Yeah.
I get it, because so you can definitely align incentives when you actually develop a game, you get a token, and I see the value of what you're doing on your side based on the fact that you could use the liquidity coming to the activity of a specific game using a specific token, and giving the usage for you, the music aspect of it as well. So it's taking that liquidity for the use of Styngr with the boombox. Did you mention the boombox? Would love to refer
Oh,
to
sure,
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of different products. You can do Fortnite-style emotes. You can do jam tracks like they have in Festival. You can have radio. And what we've done is, for the Roblox platform, we created a product that allows your avatar to equip with a boombox or any object. We have brands coming in who are branding these objects. And it makes listening social. So you can hear music in a surrounding radius, maybe 3 virtual meters, in any direction, or get your friends to listen on in your same squad. And I just think it makes it inherently, it's inherently a better experience when it's social, And it's a really great fit for UGC games, because those are as much social environments as they are, like video games.
Is it the glue to exactly what you're actually trying to achieve, the social aspect of it, like you're merging the social aspect of music, how we tend to gather everyone into one thing, which is music, but also the gaming aspect of it, because it's all about community, and we want to prove that. And we know that there are some challenges that the game companies are facing, which is user acquisition and retention. So do you feel like they are using music the best way?
That's a good question. I mean, we've seen a move for gaming companies to really become infrastructure layers, right? Roblox, Minecraft, others are basically engine layers where the creators can build experiences on top of them. And these experiences have like game mechanics, but really they're fun, bite-sized social environments. And, music has been in social environments since fire was flickering against cave walls, right? So it's just a good fit. And what we see is, depending on how they leverage the music in there, the session lengths get longer, session frequency goes up, retention does get better. So I think this concept of drops or only using music in cutscenes is really good to make those scenes feel cinematic, but it's not really leveraging the power of recorded music in a way that makes it sticky. It's really good at keeping people in a place. Look at the terrestrial examples, right? Like bars. If you do not like the music, you go to another bar until you do like the environment. It's not that much different in these big social games. What do you think, Alvaro?
I think so. Yeah, I think what I can tell you, taking one step back, there is, and we are observing this, there is going to be an explosion over the next 2 or 3 years of all gaming companies, platform level, AAA games. They're already, all of them, thinking about music in a completely different way, right? So, because as Alex said, whoever, there is a new generation of players, right? I have a 12-year-old. I see how they play. They play in a very different way. They interact much more, they grew up in a different way, right? They interact with media in a very, very different way. So I think gaming companies across the board, they're starting to realize that they want more immediacy, right? Think about Grand Theft Auto, right? When was the last Grand Theft Auto released, Alex? Like maybe 5 years ago, 6, Alex? The music is completely obsolete, right? You want immediacy, you want more choice, you want for the users to be able to use music in a much more expansive way. That's already happening. None of it is already available, but you can see, companies thinking in a very, very different way about around music.
Now, as we were talking about onboarding in a previous partner around how to onboard game developers into blockchain infrastructure, if we had to ask ourselves the same question, do you feel like it's easy to onboard game developers into these thoughts of having some music within the games, but in a good way, like a cohesive ecosystem? Do you feel like we are in that situation right now, or you definitely not need some education based on your conversation with game companies?
You know, I think this immediacy is really interesting. What I'm seeing, a lot of it's driven by the environment. Like, we're seeing, at least in the mobile games landscape, that the growth is slowing, right? It's more plateaued than it was linear and upwards now. So people are really looking for ways to monetize, and ways that don't cost the users because the users aren't spending as much. So we're introducing like audio ad-funded radio, incremental revenue stream, free music for listeners. That's becoming more appealing to that crowd because of the economic environment they're in. In some of the like the AAA space or the AA space where they're doing well, but it's very crowded, where they want to use it for user acquisition. So I think people are they're really challenging themselves to find alternate ways to crack some of these problems. And music's always been there. It's just been, I think it's either too mysterious for them in their process, or there's the assumption that it's too costly to use, unless you're like Take-Two Interactive.
Yeah, exactly. I would really encourage this community to really start to think about music as basically a business driver, and not just as background music, something that you plug and play at the end of the process, because you're gonna, and I think we usually joke about this, right? When you go from library music to the Beastie Boys, the retention increases 5%.
Sure, yeah.
Right, and all all games live and die by time spent, retention, all those metrics that we like. So that is my recommendation. It's happening. It's nobody's seen it yet, but it's gonna happen. It's changing, and companies like Styngr are a really good example of the music industry really understanding the need and really working together to come up with solutions that are much more plug and play. Something that people usually don't understand is that when it comes to, these activations that you were talking about before, right? Think about an activation by, Eminem. What you're actually looking at is 5 different rights working at the same time. You have master rights, you have publishing rights, you have image and likeness rights, you have merchandise rights, and you have motion data rights. Right? Those rights have always lived in different corners of the industry, right? So, a company like Styngr is an incredible, great solution for gamers who want to start to, dip their toe in the water, and what the industry can do for them, where you actually have 3 of those rights, pretty much plug and play: master rights, publishing rights, and then collecting societies, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there is a lot behind the scenes that is happening right now in the music industry, and Styngr is a great partner of us, of ours, and really ahead of the curve, I would say.
So obviously one of your focuses on what's happening in the production space and what kind of features intersection you can see for the music industry and a little bit for gaming as well. What do you see? And what is your expectation as well? What you don't see happening, and you wish you would like to see that? In the
gaming industry, you mean?
In the music and gaming, or music or gaming industry, related to what you could do with blockchain.
Right. Well, I think it's I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I just said. Right. I understand that like many, especially the big AAA developers, right? They take a lot of risks in different areas. And I understand why music is not an area where they want to take risks. Also, there is a little bit of reluctancy, they're reluctant to adopt things that haven't been proven before, right? So I think the way, sort of like the right approach, going back to Styngr, has been, starting where there is a lot of action happening and a lot of change, and that is on the UGC space. Roblox, Minecraft, Rec Room, right? That's where all the, a lot of the new generation, the players are basically living, and they're playing and they're breaking and they're communicating, they're going crazy, right? And then from there, eventually, all that is going to, be adopted by, bigger developers. Once it has been sort of proven in a way. So what I'm not seeing is I would love to see more acceleration. I would love to see companies taking more risks, and paying more attention to music.
With everything we just said in terms of any games who would like to improve their metrics and don't see music as a way to do it, should actually talk to you guys. So it's definitely the kind of concept that we wanted to.
No, at all.
The last important question, but I'm not gonna like GTA 5. Everyone in the blockchain space is actually waiting for the game to be released on the blockchain. It's not gonna happen for sure, but if it happens, maybe it's not the way we expect. It's going to be the way you could actually implement music within the game, and actually music in GTA is something. Will you work with GTA at some point? Does it make sense for you to work with
them? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that they've built a phenomenal ecosystem, and they're taking their time to release something that's going to be extraordinary. That will dominate the cultural conversation for a year when it comes out. But yeah, I mean, they hats off to Take-Two and Rockstar. They built an extraordinary experience. But it's funny. I would say I feel like because they've done music so well, because they're such a large entity, the assumption is you have to be of that size and scale to work with recorded music and to get big artists or major IP in the game. That's actually not the case anymore. You can be of any size and scale and leverage this. It's just leveraging it in the right way. One opportunity for Web3 games in particular that I see is that community was really good with drops, right? Like extraordinary with it, better than other digital environments by an order of magnitude. But I feel like I'm seeing less creativity in Web3 games in terms of how they're doing their drops these days. Artist IP lends itself really well to that. Music lends itself really well to that because every week you have hundreds of new tracks that are coming out. And their music too is looking for a way to cut through the noise. Artists want to look for that. So there's always interesting opportunities to partner on that. I really think that's an avenue where Web3 games could excel. And that community did really well with it. It never quite cracked the music side. But if it did, it would be an extraordinary marriage.
Can I ask you something, Flavien? In terms of what do you think the challenge for the Web3 sort of community, with music is?
The kind of expectation the players themselves will have for
Right, yeah. Why is not the community paying so much attention to music?
I think it really depends on the genre as well. You couldn't expect the same thing if you actually play an FPS or an RPG. What is the purpose of listening to music when you're playing against people in the PvP mode, actually? Maybe for the boost in your brain and the dopamine you could get from actually shooting to everyone. So it might not be the way you would like to use music and music licensing. But for the RPGs part of it, it makes total sense to actually be working with you for the collectibles aspect. And I think that's what you actually said. The layer of the way we release NFTs, if I may say this word, might not be ideal and done the best way possible from the game companies. And actually when you try to merge the music and what they actually try to achieve in the game, it could make a lot of sense to work on drops, so I couldn't agree more. But it's like everything we're saying, it's not like just a matter of launching a token or launching an NFT when you talk to games. It's so many things depending on the strategy you have for
Right. I think an important point that we didn't touch on is the monetization aspect, in particular Styngr, right? The idea that if you integrate the Styngr's technology, you can monetize, right? The Styngr is a DMCA compliant sort of product. So I think an idea that Alex and I constantly talk about is the fact that you see gamers building these beautiful experiences and then they have to destroy them completely to monetize and to integrate, sort of ads and everything is very visual, and you can basically migrate from that into, maybe not entirely, but diminish the amount of visual disruption that you introduce in the experience and supplement it with audio, right? That is way less disruptive. So you go from library music, right, to Taylor Swift and the Beastie Boys, and you on top of that start to monetize in a way that you haven't been able before. So it is a really win-win product. That's why we have a lot of faith in Styngr and in Alex. But again, it's the gaming industry. They're taking risks in other areas. We hope to see more of an acceleration in the next few years.
Perfect final words, I think. For any members of the BGA, and we're already working with anyone who makes sense for Styngr to work with. I think there is a long road in terms of onboarding game companies into this art of using music for their own purpose. But we're very happy to trigger some conversation with some of the members we have and every new members who could make sense for you to meet. So just the beginning, but I guess the future is bright, right?
Yeah, 100%.
100%, absolutely.
Thank you very much for attending the panel.
Thank you.
Question, no, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.